The Bengals have plenty of needs ahead of the 2025 NFL Draft. What are their biggest needs? Let's rank them right now on Enter the Jungle. Hi again, everyone, and welcome into Enter the Jungle. I'm James Rapien. He is Andrew Fox Miller. Catch us every single Tuesday, most of the time at 8 Eastern on the YouTube channel Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Also weekly on FanDuel Sports Network. Shout out to our sponsor, Garage Beer. We're part of the Big Play Network. And let's dive in because the NFL Draft is almost here. We're just a few weeks away from the NFL Draft, Andrew. And the Bengals have the 17th overall pick. They're only going to pick one player with that selection unless they trade down. They're only going to get one prospect there. Everyone has strong opinions about who they should take from at least a position standpoint. And so it felt like the right time to rank the Bengals' needs. And there are multiple, which is not a great place to be, but it is the place that they're in. Multiple needs that they have, some key needs, some key starting jobs that could be drafted in this year's class. Let's rank their needs. What do you think is the Bengals' biggest need, assuming they don't add a player between now and the 2025 NFL Draft?
By the way, this whole segment right here is like the antithesis of your, the whole players, not positions, but let's talk about positional needs. Are you squirming a bit?
Well, look, you should be able to address needs with the best player available.
Yes.
Like that should be able to happen. Like people assume that I'm saying take a quarterback and they don't use common sense. Like one, the quarterbacks in this year's class stink. And our friends from Big Play up in Cleveland, they're really rooting for a quarterback at number 2. They should be. Even though what I would do, I would take Travis Hunter or I would take, insert whoever, but I'd probably take Travis Hunter, which they might do. Who knows? But best player available is always the way to go. It is. Unless it's like a quarterback and you split the difference and you really, really need a quarterback. Like then it changes things. But if it's Abdul Carter versus Shedeur Sanders, well, I would take Abdul Carter. Unless you think Shedeur Sanders is a stud. Anyways, when it comes to the Bengals, does it irk me to do this? No, because of needs. Needs are needs. I would have already addressed those needs of free agency. The roster would not look the same if they put me in charge. I can guarantee you that. But they are here, and they clearly are planning. And I think identifying the needs helps us identify what they're planning to do in the draft as well. And I think that's why it's a valuable exercise, because once you identify the needs and you look around, I think that tells you where the Bengals think the strengths of the draft are and where they can find key players at.
We could definitely have a big discussion on best player available versus needs, but we'll go with this premise for now. Might sprinkle a little my thoughts on what you're saying right now in the discussion. But with that said, talking about needs this offseason, obviously we talked about offseason needs in February before free agency, of course. At that time, I felt that defensive tackle was their biggest need. And this was a time when BJ Hill was presumably walking away. They re-signed Hill, of course. They added TJ Slayton, which isn't addressing the pass rush, but stopping the run was also a big need that Slayton will hopefully address. So it's still a top need, but for me, the offensive line is now top priority. Guard is the top need. And we'll go on about trenches, but to me, guard is number 1. Defensive tackle, maybe we'll say it a half step down, but it's number 2. The concerning thing with defensive tackle being a need for this draft is that they need someone to make a difference, like on passing downs. And I'm not sure that there's a draft pick that can be a surefire answer to that, unless it's a first round pick. I don't know. But regardless, when we talk about guard, I would say that you're protecting Joe Burrow. That's your top need. It was previous to this, but now ever more, like more than ever. And they have holes to fill. I don't know how anyone could argue that guard wouldn't be the top need.
It 1000% is a top need. Like the top need. This draft begins and ends with guard. And it's because they put themselves in this position.
Yep.
And the crazy part is if you handicap where they go, there isn't a true guard that played guard in college that they should take at 17.
Yeah.
Like there is not. Now, there are some intriguing offensive tackles that could be really darn good guards at 17. Like if Kelvin Banks out of Texas is there, if Josh Simmons out of Ohio State is there, like you could sell me on that idea. But part of why I mentioned that, buckle up, Bengals fans, because there's a real scenario where the Bengals are drafting a college tackle and moving them to guard. And I'm fine with that. That happens across the league all the time. The Bengals have just been awful at it. They have been bad at it really since Andrew Whitworth, when they had him play guard a couple times. Outside of that, it's just been bad. And it's obviously Jackson Carman comes to mind. I think Cordell Volson as a fourth rounder has been okay, but they need more than that. They need plug and play starter. And so where do I expect them to get a guard? If it's not pick 17, it probably needs to be pick 49. And you could kind of stretch it to round 3 in some of these mocks. But as we know, Andrew, the draft changes a ton. And you could look around at pick 81 in the 3rd round, 81 overall, and the guy you want be gone. So I really think that those first 2 picks, one of those almost has to be guard, which is against my logic. Now, is there a realistic scenario where best player available is guard in one of those spots? It could happen, no doubt about it. But putting yourself in that position where you have to go guard early, that doesn't feel great. And it does feel like that's the position the Bengals are in.
Yeah, I mean, and we could talk about, again, best player available and need. That's obvious. Obviously, there's some nuance to that. There's also this, like, what do you do when your top priority should be protecting arguably the best player on your roster? I mean, Jamar Chase is up there too, but there's something to that. And I can understand why a lot of Bengals fans out there, a lot of people that are interested in this draft and how it impacts the Bengals, I can understand why that best player available to them is that player that can slide in and protect Joe Burrow. Like, this isn't fantasy football. This isn't a rookie draft in the dynasty league. You're going for points in fantasy football, points from players otherwise independent of one another on your roster. I'm not drafting a punter in the 2nd round, but if I could draft a player like a starting guard that can improve the chances of my starting quarterback staying upright and healthy more during the season, there's real value to that. Arguably, you're drafting close to BPA, if you're not at BPA, for the best player on your team. So it's very difficult. I would be shocked and disappointed if they didn't take a guard in the first 2 rounds. It's just where we are for all the reasons you just mentioned. It's disappointing to feel that way, but it is what it is.
I secretly hope that they have a handshake deal with Brandon Scherf.
Yeah.
And, because they could still sign a guard after the draft. Just which a lot of you probably know, but they could still go that route. And there are starting level guards available. Dalton Reisner saying, hey, I'd love to play for the Bengals. Like, there are guys that could come in and be quality starting guards still. And it's like, okay, well, that doesn't mean you don't draft one, but hopefully you sign one anyway. Like, they could take a guard in the 1st round, or a guy that they think should be a guard at the next level with the 17th pick. I don't feel great about it. I'd feel pretty darn good about some of these guys, like Josh Simmons. I'd feel good about him, but I don't feel great about him being a plug and play instant starter that's going to keep Joe Burrow upright. Guard's hard.
Yep.
It's a hard spot. It's a hard position when you're dropping back like the Bengals are going to drop back. So Tate Ratledge out of Georgia in round 2 feels good, really good athlete. Like, feels like it should work, but there's still questions there. So even if they do that, I still want them to go sign a veteran. Like, I still want that. Like, that's how big of a need it is. And I don't feel as strongly about that, about some of these other needs. And so this was the precursor to the defense. Everyone's talking about defense, and the defense is a huge part of it. But there's a bunch of needs that are going under the radar as well. So we'll get to the defense, I'm sure, as we rank the needs, and some hidden needs that you might not have thought about with the NFL draft just a few weeks away. But Andrew and I both agree guard is number 1. We'll get to the rest of them coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Foxmiller. I'm James Rapien. Catch us every single Tuesday on the YouTube channel Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Join the 54,000 plus people that have subscribed to us. So if you're watching us on FanDuel Sports Network right now, check out our YouTube channel and join us every single week as well. And let's dive in to the rest of these needs. If you're just joining us, we started with guard. It's the Bengals' biggest need going into the 2025 NFL draft. After that, Andrew, I'm going to go with a blanket statement before you get specific on position.
Okay.
Because this is the need I'm looking for. And this very much could be pick 17. I need another defensive playmaker. I think that's their need. Because a lot of people are going to say defensive tackle or pass rush or defensive end, or maybe some say linebacker. You could argue safety. You could say corner. Like you could go in a bunch of different routes. You know what I want? Any of them. Give me a top playmaker that's going to make a difference. And maybe that's Jahad Campbell out of Alabama, the linebacker, who's coming off of shoulder surgery. So that's kind of scary. But if he's healthy and checks all the boxes, could certainly be that playmaker. Maybe it's Nick Emanwari from South Carolina, who's a safety but can play in the middle of the field. And if they think that he can do everything that they ask a safety to do on the back end, maybe that's the guy. Or maybe it is a pass rusher, Walter Nolan, in town this week for a visit out of Ole Miss. Maybe it's one of the multiple defensive ends that people have talked about in this year's class. Like there are a lot of different options that you could go. But if they go defense in round one, I am not set on a position. My thirst for a playmaker is at an all-time high on defense. They need it. And if they're going defense in round one, that better be the route they go. Not, defensive line to take defensive line. They need a guy who's going to make plays and make a difference right now.
Let me pose this to you, because we talk about getting playmakers and areas that maybe aren't top needs, but are among the needs that we have. Consider the fact that they could take in the first couple of rounds. Let's say they take a safety that they feel is someone that really is going to be able to just jump in and be the playmaker, be reliable, consistent, so on and so forth. Well, now you've got a situation where maybe you are freeing up a little space. Maybe you're getting rid of a Geno Stone. It's not unprecedented that they would do something like that. A linebacker, Jermaine Pratt's still out there. I don't know what's going to happen with Jermaine Pratt, but if you've got somebody in those first couple of rounds, who's to say that they don't cut ties with Jermaine Pratt and then they go double down with some of the remaining guard free agents out there? Not that they couldn't do that already, but it certainly seems to be able to pave the way for that if you do that. So it's all very interesting to see what they do in reaction to those decisions. But I would agree with you. I mean, I think defensive tackle's still up there for me. Linebacker is kind of up there too. Again, I don't really know how I feel about Jermaine Pratt in 2025. If he sticks around, it's still a big need. But if Burks is rotating in for really anybody, even a rookie, like I'm feeling a little better about it at the end of the day. Safety, defensive end, you talk about the defensive line, those are kind of neck and neck with me. But man, if Hendrickson doesn't stay in play, we're having a much different discussion, I feel like, about edge.
Sure. There's no doubt. There's the lingering Trey Hendrickson impact. Do they sign him to a long-term deal? The draft is the trade deadline. So if they're going to trade him, it's going to be during the draft or right before the draft so they can use those picks now. I would say, because you're talking about linebacker, Jermaine Pratt better not be here. He better not be here. You can't fire Lou Anarumo, fire James Betcher, have Al Golden at the combine rave about Logan Wilson, and he was asked about the linebackers, but rave about Logan Wilson, not really mention Jermaine. Jermaine have a trade request. You can't have all these things happen and Jermaine come back. It's over. Now, how is it over? Depends. To your point, Bengals history, this has happened a lot. Andy Dalton was on the Bengals roster after the Bengals drafted Joe Burrow. And a couple days later, after they drafted him, they released Andy Dalton. Probably trying to get something in a trade for Andy. And people looked at his salary and it was like 17-ish million. And they were like, nah, we'll wait for him to become a backup. And they did. And he signed with Dallas. So I think that's probably what happens with Jermaine Pratt. But linebacker is no doubt a need. And if you go, Jahad Campbell is really the only linebacker you'd consider at 17. I think that there are probably two safeties. Maybe the Bengals would say three. I don't think Xavier Watts should be in consideration at 17, even though he played for Golden at Notre Dame. I think if you trade down, maybe. I think Nicky Manwari from South Carolina, Malachi Starks from Georgia, those are the two safeties. Jahdae Barron from Texas is a corner to pay attention to. Will Johnson out of Michigan is probably ahead of Barron, but both guys can make plays and fit that playmaker mold. Like there are guys at every level, and that's what's tough about the 17th pick. I think another need would be more picks. A lot of people are going to say they need more picks and they would love to trade down, but I think it's going to be tough because I think a lot of teams are going to want to trade down. I also think that they don't view cornerback is as big of a need as maybe you do, or a lot of people do. It doesn't mean they won't take one. I think they want to add one, but they only have 6 picks. I think they're going to come away with a safety, a guard, probably an edge, a defensive tackle, a linebacker. There's 5 right now. If you go that route, and let's say you take one of those positions away, let's say you take away safety or or edge. Maybe they don't go with an edge, or you take away the defensive tackle. Like, there's going to be something. You're going to leave this draft, unless they trade down and just hit it out of the park, feeling like they didn't address everything.
Of course.
Because I didn't even get to tight end and running back, which are both needs and Bengals fans are in denial about. I haven't even mentioned the possibility about them doing their patented wide receiver pick late in the draft, which they do. That's something they've done throughout their history. They could certainly do it, even though I haven't really done a deep dive on this wide receiver class yet. So, yeah, I mean, there's needs on needs, Andrew.
Needs on needs. And yeah, that would have been my cornerback probably edges its way into that top 5 needs, like number 6, let's say, after safety, edge. But yeah, that next tier, tight end, running back, that's what I would have had as well. They're always going to chase that wide receiver 3. Fine, continue doing that. But at the end of the day, if you're going to find somebody that you believe is a playmaker at tight end or running back, I know you're not opposed to a day one, but for sure, for me, like round 3 and beyond is like, okay, I'm not going to be mad. It depends who's out there, I suppose. But
that's, I always look at the draft like, how does everything fit? It's a puzzle. And if you go tight end round 1, right, or running back round 1, like, that happens. Ashton Genty falls to 17, or Tyler Warren falls to 17, and you take them. Well, then what's there in rounds 2 and 3? Well, you could get a guard in round 2. I could certainly find an edge rusher in round 3. And so, like, there's a path to where that works. And it works at a high level. But a lot of people can't wrap their head around that when there are offensive playmakers in this draft or guards in this draft that are going to be ranked ahead of a lot of these defensive guys. The James Pierces, the Mike Greens, going to be ranked ahead of those guys. But that doesn't mean that the Bengals won't go defense. I think it's going to be something that we're going to cover over the next few weeks. So make sure, again, that you check us out on the YouTube channel, Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Up next, this is in your wheelhouse. Joe Burrow, handshake, the Godfather. Yes, he caught up with the Godfather. We'll get to that coming up next. Joe Burrow and the Godfather. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. I'm James Rapien. He is Andrew Fox Miller. And over the weekend, Joe Burrow posting a photo with Al Pacino on his Instagram. Burrow training in California, caught up with the Godfather, the Hollywood legend. Andrew, this has got to bring a smile to your face. You're the biggest movie fan I know.
And I'm not in a movie theater like you, James.
That's right. I'm about to fall asleep. Not many of our viewers will get that reference, but if 300 was on, I'd be out. But this is right up your alley, Al Pacino and Joe Burrow.
Yeah, like this is off season, James, right here. Like, we are here. Like, I know we want to talk when we have time. We'll talk about the flooding and Paycor Stadium and all that up ahead. Let me start with this. I thought this was AI when I first saw it. Not gonna lie. Like, when I saw it on social media, it was lifted by some random account that didn't credit the original image. Nothing new there. So I thought it was made up. I dismissed it, but it's real.
It was also on BengalsTalk.com where you should get all your Bengals news. Go ahead.
Fleeting moment. I see a picture. I'm going to assume it's AI when it's a picture of Al Pacino and Joe Burrow. And not only that, like in true Joe Burrow fashion, there is zero context given. The Godfather. That's all that he puts there. Like, thanks, Joe. It would be like us starting this episode with you and that backdrop you've got for those of you watching. And it's just an image and you add the caption movies and that's it. Like, I'm Joe Burrow. That's all you need to know. The Godfather. Peak off-season content, James. I mean, we had backless suits. Now we got Al Pacino and Joe Burrow keeps delivering it.
I'm going to take a picture with Joe Burrow and the Godfather in this movie theater. What do you think? What are the odds of that? Joe Burrow was already a heck of a stretch, but to go with the Godfather as well. Now we're on something. Al Pacino, I'm not sure I'm going to get him to come to Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, can we? If you make that happen, could it really top your Magnificent Seven from 2016 poster? I don't know.
Wow, hating on Magnificent Seven now. I'm telling Denzel.
I mean,
all tied up in Hollywood. Pacino, Denzel, Joe Burrow. Up next, from a fun topic of the offseason to a not so fun topic of the offseason. All the Bengals prospects that are visiting ahead of the NFL draft, well, they have to take a canoe. A canoe. That's right. We'll get to that coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox Miller. I'm James Rapien. And Paycor Stadium Well, while the stadium isn't flooded, the player parking lot is. The Ohio River reaching levels that it hasn't reached at any point in Paycor Stadium history. It's the tallest, 60 feet, the tallest it's been since 1997. Andrew, Paul Brown Stadium was built in 2000, its first season. So yeah, it's hopefully not doing too much damage. They have some flood walls inside that stadium holding hopefully a lot of the water out, but still wild to see the player parking lot flooded like that.
Yeah, time for Joe Burrow to invest in the bat boat next, I guess. Yeah, again, we had Al Pacino. Now we got flooding and Frank Serpico, rising river and Richard Roma. That's maybe all I got. I don't know. Last year we had Vogue World, and now we have Vincent Hanna from Heat. There you go. That's about all I got for my Pacino and flooding connections.
They should get multiple jet skis and have the prospects race. That's what they should do.
I want an interior shot of the gates that they've got up there to see what is or isn't coming in there. I'm very curious because there's
so many nooks and crannies in that stadium, man. Like something's got to be getting in. Hopefully it's not too much.
Maybe better scores in the cafeteria food. But
taking a shot at the
maybe
food.
Can it hurt? I don't know.
Speaking of that, I'm hungry. Andrew's hungry. Thank you so much for watching. That's going to do it for us this week. Thank you so much for watching Enter the Jungle right here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk and FanDuel Sports Network.